Have you ever wondered what Java literals are and how they work in your code? Well, it's time to clear the fog. Java literals are more than just static data values written directly into your code. They are the building blocks of your Java programs, representing fixed values in your code that never change during the execution of the program. From integers and floating point numbers to characters and strings, Java literals play a vital role in shaping the way your code functions. Understanding Java literals is crucial for both beginners and seasoned programmers alike, as they provide a foundation for more complex programming concepts. In this video, we will uncover the mysteries of Java literals, explore their various types, and learn how to use them effectively in our code. We'll even delve into some of the key rules you need to follow when using Java literals. So buckle up and stay tuned as we dive into the world of Java literals. Java literals, what are they exactly? Let's dive in and demystify this term. In the simplest of terms, Java literals are a syntactic representation of values directly written into your code. They're like the constants of your Java programming universe. They stay the same, they don't change, they're fixed values. Picture this: when you're writing a letter and you put down the words, those words are your way of expressing your thoughts. In the same way, in Java programming, literals are your way of expressing data in your code. They are the basic building blocks, the raw data, the immutable truths in the universe of your program. Now let's break it down a bit further. Java literals can be categorized into 5 types, each corresponding to different types of data. But we'll get to that in the next scene. For now, let's look at some common examples of literals. When you write the number 2 in your code, as in int equals sign 2, that 2 is an integer literal. It's a fixed value. It's not a variable that might change. It's a constant. Or consider this: if you write double B equals sign 3.14, the 3.14 is a floating point literal. It represents a decimal value. And what about char C equals sign A? That A is a character literal. It's a single character value. Another common literal you might come across is the string literal. For example, in the line string s equals sign hello. The hello is a string literal. It's a sequence of characters. And finally, we have Boolean literals, true and false. They represent the 2 possible values for a Boolean type. So in essence, Java literals are fixed, immutable values that are directly written into your code. They serve as the fundamental building blocks of your data in your Java programs. Now that we know what Java literals are, let's look at the types of literals in Java. Java literals come in different types, each with its own purpose. Let's dive deeper into this fascinating world. Firstly, we have integer literals. Simply put, these are whole numbers without a decimal point. There are 4 types of integer literals in Java: byte, short int, and long. For instance, the number 23 is an integer literal. Next up are float literals. They represent fractional values and are defined with a decimal point or an exponent. They can be categorized into 2 types, float and double. For instance, 23.5 or 2. 3e3 are examples of float literals. Moving on, we have character literals. These are single characters enclosed within single quotes. A character literal can be a letter, a number, a special character, or an escape sequence. For example, a, u1 or at are character literals. Finally, we have string literals. They are a sequence of characters enclosed within double quotes. They are instances of the string class. For example, hello world is a string literal. Now you might be wondering about Boolean literals. Well, they are a special case. In Java, we have 2 Boolean literals, true and false. They represent the 2 possible values of a Boolean type. And let's not forget about null literals. The null literal, represented by the keyword null, is used to denote that an object reference doesn't point to any object and holds no value. There's also the possibility of having literals of classes and interfaces. These are a bit more complex and are usually represented by class or interface names. In essence, each type of literal has a specific format and usage. They represent fixed values in your Java programs. Whether you're defining a number, a character, a string, or a Boolean value, you'll be using one of these literal types. Understanding these types of literals is fundamental in Java coding, but how do we use them? Using Java literals is as simple as it sounds. Let's dive into the process and see how it's done. First off, consider the context. Java literals can be used in various parts of your program, such as variable assignments, expressions, and control statements. For instance, when declaring a variable, you might use an integer literal like this. Here, 23 is a literal representing the age. Next, let's explore expressions. An expression is a construct made up of variables, operators, and method invocations, which are constructed according to the syntax of the language that evaluates to a single value. A simple expression using literals might look something like this. Here, 5 and 7 are integer literals. Control statements also make use of literals. For example, in an if statement, a Boolean literal is often used to determine the flow of control. A simple if statement might look like this. Here, true is a Boolean literal. Now let's explore how literals are used in method invocations. When calling a method, you may need to pass values to it. These values can be literals. An example of this might be, here, hello literals is a string literal. It's important to note that the type of literal you use should match the type of variable you're assigning it to, or the type of value a method expects. For instance, you can't assign a string literal to an integer variable or pass a Boolean literal to a method that expects a string. And there you have it, a step-by-step guide on using literals in Java. Whether you're assigning values to variables, creating expressions, controlling flow with if statements, or passing values to methods, literals are a fundamental part of your code. With these steps, you can effectively use literals in your Java code. But are there any rules to follow? Indeed there are, and we'll delve into those in the next scene. Java has some rules when it comes to using literals. Now let's delve into these rules to ensure our code runs like a well-oiled machine. First off, the correct syntax is paramount. Each type of literal in Java has its own syntax, which must be followed to avoid errors. Let's consider integer literals. Java allows you to use decimal, hexadecimal, binary, and octal literals. But remember, hexadecimal literals should be prefixed with 0x or 0x, binary literals with 0b or 0b, and octal literals with 0. Next, floating point literals. These are by default considered double in Java. To specify a float literal, you append an f or f at the end. For a double literal, you use d or d, although this is optional. Moving on to character literals. These are defined within single quotes like A. You can also use Unicode characters by prefixing them with U. String literals, on the other hand, are enclosed in double quotes like hello. Be cautious not to exceed the limit of 65535 characters. Boolean literals have only two possible values, true and false. There's no room for maybe. Lastly, null literals. These are a special type and are used to signify that an object reference points to no location in memory. Now, on to restrictions. Each literal type has its own boundaries. For instance, integer literals should not exceed the range of the data type they're assigned to. A long literal, for example, should be appended with L or L to indicate it's not an int. Similarly, floating point literals shouldn't exceed their respective ranges. An important point to note is that Java doesn't allow non-numeric values for numeric literals. Also, character literals can't contain more than one character, and string literals can't be used for non-string data types. Boolean literals? They can't be anything other than true or false. And null literals can only be used with object references, not with primitive types. Remember these rules as they will ensure your code runs smoothly. Let's recap what we've learned about Java literals. Java literals, distinctly defined as a raw value inserted directly into the code, serve as the backbone of programming in Java. They come in various types, each with its unique characteristics and uses. We've explored integer literals, floating point literals, character literals, string literals, and Boolean literals. Each type is used to represent and manipulate different kinds of data within your programs. We delved into how to use these literals in your code. Whether it's assigning a value to a variable, performing operations, or making decisions, literals are always there, doing their job silently and efficiently. Lastly, we've discussed the rules for using these literals. Remember, the rules are there to ensure that your code is clear, efficient, and free from errors. With this knowledge about Java literals, you're now one step closer to mastering Java programming. Keep coding and exploring.